Hi everybody, my name is Brianna and I am a military brat, and if you don't know what that is, I'm going to tell you what that is. I've picked the military community as my topic, and I am going to be discussing the challenges that they face, and I'm going to talk about the differences between the families in the military and the civilian world, because there are a lot of similarities, but there are also a lot of differences. So there are a lot of challenges that military people face and military members. The very first challenge is joining the military. So at 19 years old, a lot of people, that's when they join. They'll talk to recruiters for whatever branch they're going to join, and they basically have to do a lot of background checking. So if you have any sort of physical problem, they're not going to accept you in the military. So, for example, if you have asthma, they're not going to take you. And there are, like, certain exceptions to that rule, but a lot of the time, if there's, like, a very pressing matter in your medical history, they'll say no. So, the first challenge after you pass your physical exam is choosing your branch. There are 5 branches. There's the Air Force, the Army, the Coast Guard, the Navy, and the Marines, and they all do different things. They're all in different locations, and they all have different requirements as far as basic training, which is the second thing that military people have to do. And it's essentially just a 8 to 2 month boot camp. So you go and you train and you do a lot of physical exercise as well as mental exercise, so they're going to put you in very high stress situations during this time to kind of get you prepared for what military life is like. After you complete your basic training, they'll give you your first job, and they'll usually station you at a base. So the bases could be anywhere around the country. Sometimes you get to choose where you go, sometimes you don't. And that's where you get your starting salary, which, depending on what your education is already, will determine how much you make. It's not just getting into the military that's hard, though. There are other aspects of life that a lot of people consider normal, but the military experience is a little different. For example, so moving, military people can move up to every 2 years for their entire career, and that's not just them, it's their entire family. So for example, I lived in the same base for 10 years, and then we moved to Albuquerque from Missouri, and we lived in New Mexico for 10 months because my dad got stationed down there. And so you could just move anywhere from like every 2 years to every 4. It just kind of depends on what job you're doing. And they move anywhere, so they can move you anywhere all over the world. Some people go overseas, some people, they go from like one end of the country to the other, some of them just stay in the same general state, but they go to different bases, so it just kind of depends on your job specifically. And then the other thing is deployment. So it kind of goes into moving, only deployment is where one family member is sent to another country, and they have to work for a certain amount of time in that country. So you might not even know where they're going, you might not know if the area they're in is dangerous or what they're doing, and you don't know how long they're going to be there. And so it's hard for military families to deal with that sometimes, especially if the family member dies overseas or becomes a prisoner of war, or, and they don't come back. So that's one of the stresses of military life that's unique to their community. So they face a lot of challenges, and it affects all of the people who are involved in the community, and it could be hard to understand that from a civilian point of view. And a civilian is a person who does not have any sort of military affiliation whatsoever. So they won't be able to get on base because they don't have an ID. They might not have any family members who are in the military, that kind of thing. So they're not going to understand military-related challenges. And that causes some issues between the military community and just the rest of the population, because a lot of people don't understand why the military members get the benefits that they do. So, for example, a military member could get retirement, like really good retirement, health care, dental care, education, and it's all provided for them through the government. And it's for free, but it's not really for free. It's part of like their salary, kind of. So they wouldn't get those benefits if they didn't do their service, if that makes sense. So yeah, so a lot of people just stereotype military members as having more than them, and it causes conflict between civilians and military people in public. And within the community, a lot of military people, they think the same way and they talk and dress the same way, like as far as uniforms go, but a lot of them don't have the same lifestyle. And so they go by the don't ask, don't tell saying, and it helps to avoid conflict, but sometimes there is conflict. And there's also like the idea of privilege, which is an issue because some people have more money in their bank account because of the job that they do, and so people like aren't supposed to talk about that either. But so these challenges just affect a lot of people in the country a lot because it's a widespread organization, and there are military members everywhere. So if we could change the perception, of the way that people on the outside view the military, I think that we could change how civilian people view the military world. And I think if we educate military people on how to talk to civilians, it would be better for the country as a whole. To educate both sides, we could bring both communities together and end conflict between people who are military and people who aren't. Thanks.